You think you've been watching the squirrel? You haven't. The squirrel has been watching you. It knows which window you appear in every morning. It knows the sound of your back door opening. It knows whether you refill the feeder at the same time each day or whether you're unpredictable. It has been building a profile of you, your patterns, your movements, your habits, for weeks, possibly months, and it is using that information every single day to make decisions about where to go, when to move, and how close it can afford to let you get. Most people look at the squirrel in their yard and see something frantic and simple, a small animal running on instinct, burying things, forgetting them, living a chaotic life at high speed. Every part of that picture is wrong. Tonight we are talking about squirrels, specifically the ones already living in your yard, and what is actually happening inside that small gray head when it looks at you. Number one, the squirrel knows your face. This is not a metaphor. Eastern gray squirrels have been shown in controlled research to recognize and remember individual human faces. They distinguish between people who have fed them and people who have not. They distinguish between people who have threatened them and people who have not. If you have been filling a feeder for 2 years, that squirrel has 2 years of data on you. It knows your baseline. Researchers studying urban squirrels found that animals in areas with regular human contact had measurably different flight initiation distances, depending on the individual human approaching, not just on human presence in general. The squirrel at your feeder this morning made a calculation about you specifically. It decided, based on accumulated information, exactly how close you were allowed to get before it needed to move. You didn't know it was doing that. It didn't need you to. Number two, the cash system and the lie at the center of it. Every autumn, the gray squirrel in your yard does something that should be impossible. It buries thousands of individual food items. Acorns, walnuts, seeds, whatever is available, in separate locations spread across an area that can cover several acres. Not in one pile, not in a few piles, in thousands of individual caches, each one buried separately, each one in a specific location the squirrel will need to find again months later under snow, after a winter that has changed the landscape entirely. And it finds them. It finds them using spatial memory of a kind that makes our own look limited. Squirrels use landmarks, sun position, and geometric relationships between objects to navigate back to specific buried locations months after the fact. The part most people don't know is what happens when another squirrel is watching. It will perform a false cache. It will go through the entire motion, digging, appearing to place something, covering the hole, without actually depositing anything. It will sometimes do this multiple times in sequence, creating a series of decoy sites, before moving to a different location to make the real cache. It is running a deliberate deception operation. The squirrel is not acting on instinct in any simple sense here. It is modeling the mental state of the observer, understanding that the other squirrel wants the food, understanding that watching the burial creates usable information, and actively working to make that information wrong. Researchers call this behavior evidence of tactical deception. The squirrel produces false information intentionally because it understands that information will be used against it. The next time you watch a squirrel bury something in your yard, you are watching either a real cache or a performance. You will not be able to tell which. Neither will the squirrel watching from the oak tree. Only the squirrel doing the burying knows. Number three. What winter actually looks like for the squirrel in your yard. Gray squirrels do not hibernate. This surprises most people. The yard goes quiet in January, the squirrel disappears for days at a time, and the assumption is that it is dormant somewhere, waiting out the cold the way a bear does. What is actually happening is more demanding. The gray squirrel remains active all winter, which means it needs to eat all winter, which means the cache system is not just impressive, it is the difference between survival and starvation. On the coldest days, a squirrel may spend the majority of its waking hours doing nothing but relocating and consuming previously buried food. The spatial memory that seemed like a remarkable trick in October is, in February, the only thing keeping it alive. On the worst days, ice storms. Temperatures well below freezing, conditions where moving through the open is genuinely dangerous. Gray squirrels will retreat to their drays and enter a state of reduced activity for short periods. Not hibernation, more like strategic waiting. What appears to be a messy pile of leaves in the fork of an oak is in fact a layered structure. An outer shell of loosely woven twigs and leaves for waterproofing. An inner chamber packed with soft material that compresses around the squirrel's body and retains heat. Squirrels sometimes build multiple drays within their home range and move between them, which reduces the predictability of their location for predators. On the coldest nights, they do not sleep alone. Gray squirrels, which spend most of the year in defended individual territories, will share a dray in winter for warmth. Sometimes with animals they would chase away from a feeder in October. They emerge when conditions allow, locate cached food with speed and precision, eat, and return to cover. The rules change when survival requires it. Number 4. The thing happening in your soil right now that the squirrel started. Here is something worth thinking about. The squirrel in your yard is, incidentally, one of the most effective reforestation agents in the eastern United States. The caches it doesn't recover, the 5 to 30% of buried acorns and walnuts that are never dug up, don't disappear. They germinate. The gray squirrel's habit of burying seeds individually, at the right depth, in scattered locations across a landscape, mimics ideal planting conditions for oak and walnut trees almost exactly. Ecologists estimate that a single squirrel may be responsible for hundreds of tree seedlings over the course of its life. Forests in the eastern United States have been shaped, in measurable ways, by the imperfect memory of gray squirrels over thousands of years. The oak tree at the edge of your yard, the one that has been there longer than your house, may have started as a cache that a squirrel buried and never returned to. The squirrel in your yard is not just living in the ecosystem, it is building it. Your yard goes quiet in the afternoon. The squirrel disappears and you stop thinking about it, but it hasn't stopped thinking about you. It knows which window you look out of. It knows what time you usually appear. It knows whether you're the kind of person who moves slowly or quickly, who refills the feeder or doesn't, who can be approached or can't. It has been running a continuous, low-level assessment of you and your property since the first day it arrived. You thought you were the one watching. You weren't. Tell me in the comments, has a squirrel in your yard ever done something that made you feel like it was actually paying attention to you? Because it was. I read everything. I'll see you in the next one.